In this episode, from 90 minutes to millions of data points. The human analysts who turned football matches into data, you'll gain insights into, well, a few key things. How football matches became millions of data points. The human role behind the adoption of sports technology. What happens behind the scenes after the final whistle. The evolution and challenges of early tracking technology. How automation and AI are transforming football analytics. And finally, the leadership lessons that extend beyond sports. Business Masters series examines how organizations build, sustain, and renew competitive advantage by exploring leadership decisions, operating models, innovation strategies, and critical inflection points. Welcome to another episode of Business Masters, Behind the Decisions That Shape Successful Companies, a program produced by Pedro, Eloy, and Chinchin. The series features conversations with CEOs, founders, corporate leaders, innovators, and industry experts who have shaped successful organizations through strategic decision-making and disciplined execution. Each conversation is paired with industry, market, and business model analysis, providing practical perspectives on the strategic and managerial choices that drive long-term performance across sectors, including technology, manufacturing, textiles, and sports.
In this episode, from 90 minutes to millions of data points, the human analysts who turned football matches into data, Pedro, Eloy, and Chinchin, focus on the topic of sports data and broadcast technology and analyze the interview conducted with Filipe Gomes, club manager at Vivigem Lisbon and former data analyst at Benfica Lab, who spent 6 years, 2017 to 2022, inside the club's football analytics environment to uncover the human work behind one of the early generations of player tracking technology.
Yeah, it's such a great story.
It really is. His story reveals a fascinating moment in the evolution of sports intelligence. When digital systems existed, but the quality of the data still depended on human expertise.
So let's jump right into this, starting with the journey from sports science to football data analytics. Because, as a fan watching a match today, your experience is totally defined by numbers.
Oh, absolutely.
You see these sleek broadcast graphics showing distance covered or passing networks or a player's top speed right there on the screen.
Yeah.
But behind those effortless graphics was this highly manual, intensely human process.
Yeah, and Filipe Gomes lived this transition from the inside, which is wild.
Exactly. I mean, he came in with a degree in sports sciences and a master's in sports training. And around the 2016 to 2017 season, he gets into Benfica's environment through a university internship.
Right, doing the basic stuff first.
Yeah, filming B-team matches, studying opposition set pieces, even researching elite European teams for his master's. But the operational demands of pro football quickly took over. He ended up spending the next 5 years focused almost entirely on this player tracking system called DataTrax, which Benfica had actually been using since around 2011.
Wow, 2011.
Yeah. And if you think about this from a business and innovation standpoint, you're seeing a masterclass in the first mover advantage in niche markets.
Absolutely.
Entering an emerging, highly specialized technological field so early, even just as an intern, it creates a unique career moat, right? You get this rapid specialization. He turned a personal passion into an irreplaceable operational role. He basically became the human engine making the technology work.
Which brings us inside Benfica Lab, really, and the team turning football into data and sets. When Filipe joined, the lab was strictly structured into 3 main areas, right? You had game analysis and observation, physiology, and nutrition.
Right.
And Filipe was in-game analysis. It was so crucial it actually later became its own independent department. The setup they had for the DataTrax system at their home stadium, Estadio da Luz, was, it was intense. They had these specialized motion-sensing cameras installed way up in the stadium architecture, pointing down at the pitch.
Right.
The goal was to transform this chaotic physical match into a clean digital model. But this perfectly illustrates a massive operational challenge for any business, which is the hardware-software bottleneck.
The hardware-software bottleneck. So having the gear but not the brains.
Precisely. They possessed advanced hardware. Those stadium cameras were phenomenal physical assets. But the software wasn't fully autonomous. The tech alone couldn't close the gap. It required this massive human operational layer to translate those raw visual feeds into actual, actionable digital models.
Yeah, which is a perfect segue to the actual operation. Let's talk about 8 analysts, 8 cameras, 22 players, and the operating model behind data-driven football. Because the scene in that lab on match days is insane.
It sounds so stressful.
It does. Filipe and 7 other analysts would just sit there with laptops running this DataTrax software.
Yeah.
And if you've ever played the video game Football Manager, The interface looked a lot like that.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, the little top-down dots.
Exactly, the little dots. You had a digital pitch with 22 markers representing the players. And the analyst's job was just to make sure every digital marker stayed attached to the right human player for 90 straight minutes.
Wow.
One analyst might just track the defensive line, another watch the central midfielders.
Which, I mean, sounds simple enough until you realize how the technology actually functioned. The cameras detected movement, but they had absolutely no idea who was moving.
Right. And from a technology commentary perspective, I always like to use this original analogy.
Yeah.
It's exactly like early semi-autonomous driving.
Oh, how so?
Well, the system works beautifully on a perfectly straight road, right? That's open play in football. But the second you hit a complex maneuver, like in a car, maybe a construction zone, but in football, a tackle or a clustered set piece like a corner kick, the system panics. A human literally has to grab the wheel.
Grab the wheel, yeah, because the player's pixels would just merge on the screen.
Exactly. The system would swap their tracking signals. So the analysts had to manually intervene and correct the system in real time, constantly.
And keep in mind, that was when they had perfect conditions at their home stadium. The challenge of away matches, rebuilding data without tracking cameras, was a completely different operational nightmare.
Oh man, this part of his interview blew my mind.
Right? Felipe's data team almost never traveled with the squad, so for away games they had to rely on just 2 fixed cameras, one covering each half of the pitch. And suddenly, the quality of their entire data collection process became entirely dependent on the architecture of the away stadium.
That is so risky for a business.
It is. If the opponent's stadium had a high vantage point for the cameras, great. But in smaller stadiums, the camera angles were incredibly low. The visibility was terrible, players would block each other from view, and identifying anyone became practically impossible.
Right.
From a business and financial standpoint, you are looking at infrastructure disparity and quality control. When varying physical assets like different stadiums create wild inconsistencies in data collection, you can't rely on your automated tech. You are forced to rely on human domain expertise, specifically tactical knowledge, to bridge the gap in data fidelity.
Because if the feed is blurry, they have to use tactics to guess who it is.
Exactly. They knew the formation, so they could deduce who a player likely was just based on where they were standing. They even had to watch the regular TV broadcasts on a second screen just to confirm identities.
Which brings up exactly why human expertise remained critical to player tracking. Because DataTrax was advanced for its time, but its limitations were staggering. No facial recognition, no shirt recognition.
No.
So imagine an opposing team shows up wearing an all-black kit or playing in rain, and the feed is low quality. The automated system basically quits. Filipe and his team actually had to memorize player running styles.
That's incredible.
Their body shapes, even the color of their boots. Against major teams, it's easier, but against lower division teams in domestic cups, brutal. And this really highlights the human-in-the-loop concept in tech innovation.
The human in the loop, yeah.
Right, because true innovation often relies on human intuition, like recognizing a specific gait or a neon boot to compensate for algorithmic blind spots in early-stage tech.
I love that. The human mind patching the software. And all of this effort was dedicated to one massive objective, building the digital match model. The division of labor required here was incredibly precise. We mentioned the 8 analysts. You had 7 completely focused on tracking, making sure the positional data was accurate.
Yep.
But then you had an 8th analyst whose sole job was recording event data.
Yeah.
This person had to manually document everything that happened around the ball, every touch, pass, tackle, shot, and sequence.
Which sounds like a nightmare.
Oh, imagine trying to do that against a team with rapid ball circulation like Guardiola's Barcelona. The strain on that single event analyst was immense.
Yeah, their fingers must have been flying across the keyboard.
Truly. And from a business and operational commentary angle, this is the ultimate test of data synchronization and value creation. The managerial challenge here is profound. You have 2 entirely distinct data sets being generated manually. Movement data on one side, event data on the other.
Right, and they have to talk to each other.
Exactly. Management's job is to merge those 2 streams to produce a single, unified, actionable product for the stakeholders. But of course, the final whistle was just the beginning.
Oh yeah, the hidden aftermatch night shift? Why data analysts worked until 7 a.m. This is the part that sounds completely exhausting. After a home game, correcting a single player's first half data might only take 15 to 20 minutes because the cameras were good. But those away matches, rebuilding the positional data from standard recorded footage could take over an hour per player, just for one half of football.
Yeah.
They would be locked in the lab until 6 or 7 in the morning, rewinding footage over and over.
Just brutal.
Totally grueling. And this brings up a really critical business point about service-level agreements, or SLAs, and operational turnaround. Because the pressure to deliver morning-after intelligence to the coaching staff dictates these operational workflows.
Aye.
And it's often at the expense of human capital.
Oh, absolutely. The coaches want it before breakfast.
Exactly. Which forces you to ask a really probing question. At what point does the cost of manual data processing literally outweigh the strategic benefit? Like, if you are burning out your best analysts, is the data still worth it?
That is the critical tension. It's a delicate balancing act, and it leads directly into the question of who used the data and inside Benfica's internal performance analysis process. With all that human suffering going into this, you'd assume they were broadcasting it everywhere.
Like selling it to TV networks or something.
Right. But it wasn't for public consumption at all. It was strictly for internal coaching and tactical use. Filipe's team built the foundation, and other analysts turned it into tactical reports for the coaches. From a financial and strategic perspective, this highlights the immense power of proprietary data as a competitive moat.
So they were basically hoarding it.
Very deliberately, Benfica made a strategic decision to keep these high-value insights completely siloed internally. They wanted to maintain an edge over competitors on the pitch rather than monetizing the raw data through media.
That makes a lot of sense. But, no matter how exclusive your data is, technology eventually catches up. Which brings us to the arrival of automated tracking and the end of manual correction.
The big pivot.
Yeah. By the time Filipe left in 2022, data tracks hadn't really evolved. The level of human intervention was still too high. A single wrong click by an exhausted analyst at 5 a.m. could ruin the team's stats. So in 2022, Benfica announced a shift to the Genius Sports, specifically their second spectrum AI-powered tracking system.
Yeah.
Suddenly you have expected goals, or XG, and automated tracking, effectively replacing the stagnant legacy system. And this is the classic build versus buy dilemma in business and technology.
Build versus buy, right?
Exactly. Legacy in-house systems eventually hit an innovation ceiling. When that happens, organizations are forced to pivot and partner with specialized third-party tech vendors to actually scale their capabilities.
Yeah.
You can't just keep throwing human all-nighters at the problem forever.
You really can't. But despite the eventual obsolescence of that tech, the human experience behind it remains profound. Looking at working in football, final remarks, and a note of appreciation, even with those exhausting 7 a.m. finishes, Filipe remembers his time at Benfica fondly.
Really?
Yeah. He talked about a photo taken in the stadium parking lot at 6 a.m. after a grueling night shift. To him, it represented the sheer privilege of working for a club he loved. And from a business and leadership angle, this speaks volumes about organizational culture and intrinsic motivation.
You just can't buy that kind of loyalty.
No, you can't. A strong sense of purpose and shared passion can drive teams to endure grueling operational challenges, creating an irreplaceable corporate culture. And we really want to extend our thanks to Filipe Gomes for sharing his journey with us.
It's an incredible story. Now, before we wrap up, we have our reading list for this episode, if you want to explore this stuff yourself.
Yes, definitely check these out.
First up, there's a 2025 paper by Krang and colleagues on computer vision AI. It's a fascinating look at how modern AI validates player tracking from broadcast footage. It's so useful because it proves just how far the tech has come since Filipe's manual tracking days.
Right, night and day difference.
Totally. Next, look up the 2022 Genius Sports press release. This is the exact announcement of Benfica's shift to automated tracking, which gives you a real-time look at a major business pivot.
I love reading those primary sources.
Yeah, it's great context. Also, point to Nuno Mauricio's biography. He's a key figure there, and reading it gives you historical context on when high-performance coaching first began integrating these systems.
Yeah.
Then definitely check out the 2017 survey by Xiao and colleagues on player tracking in soccer videos. It's a great deep read for understanding the visual challenges like bad lighting and occlusion that human analysts had to solve before computers could.
Like the black kits in the rain.
Exactly. And finally, shout out to the official Benfica Lab website. You can go there to see the modern iteration of the environment Filipe helped build.
Awesome resources. And just to give you a bit of background on the people putting this all together, a little about the authors, Chinchin Ma brings over 2 decades of experience in sales leadership, revenue enablement, and risk management to the financial services and fintech industries. Her career spans the US, Asia, and Europe, with a proven track record of executing market scaling strategies as an executive director at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, as well as orchestrating revenue strategies as a chief revenue officer in an award-winning fintech company. And Pedro Eloy is an international executive specializing in enterprise growth through business performance, revenue optimization, and digital transformation. With more than 25 years of leadership experience across Asia, Europe, and the Americas, Pedro has held executive roles in multinational organizations including Li and Fung and AOL Turner, along with high-growth ventures. He's also served as chairman of the United Nations ESBN YET, leading business initiatives across 61 Asia-Pacific economies, and has taught as an associate MBA professor in entrepreneurship at the University of Hong Kong.
We thank you for listening to this episode of Business Masters and trust this conversation provided valuable insights and perspectives that can help shape strategic thinking and decision-making within your organization. We look forward to welcoming you back for future episodes where we will continue sharing impactful analyses and hosting thought-provoking conversations that explore the ideas shaping the future of business, technology, and innovation.
But before we go, we want to leave you with one final thought. As artificial intelligence completely removes the human struggle from data collection in sports, we have to ask, when the data is perfect, instantaneous, and available to every single club out there, what becomes the next true competitive advantage? Is the future of the industry no longer about who has the best data, but who has the most creative human minds left to interpret it?
Business Masters, Behind the Decisions That Shape Successful Companies, a program produced by Pedro Eloy and Chinchin Ma. Each conversation is paired with rigorous industry, market, and business model analysis, providing practical perspectives on the strategic and managerial choices that drive long-term performance across sectors, including technology, manufacturing, textiles, and sports.